Hey, it's Chuck Armstrong with Loudwire Nights, and this is Loudwire Nights On Demand. By now, you know I love it when the worlds of rock and roll and comedy collide. And so I was very happy to hang out with Chad Daniels, talk about his latest comedy special, Empty Nester, and a whole lot more. This first aired on Thursday, August 29th. Let's go. I love hanging with comics, man. There's something about rock and roll and stand-up comedy that I really connect with. And I know I'm not alone, whether it's hanging at a rock show with a few thousand people jumping up and down, screaming out lyrics, or hanging at a stand-up show, cracking up in a room full of people who just want to laugh. There is power to all of it, man. So whenever we get to hang with a comedian, we jump at it. It's always a blast here on the show. And tonight, our very special guest is Chad Daniels. He is celebrating the release of his 10th comedy special, Empty Nester, out now on Netflix. Chad, thank you so much for being here tonight, man.
Oh, thanks for having me, Chuck. I appreciate it.
Is it kind of hard to believe you've got 10 specials out now? I mean, that's a pretty significant milestone, it seems, man.
Yeah, it's a big number. When I started, I was like, what should my goals be? And I was like, I want to put out 10 hours of comedy. And then I hit the goal before I'm ready to be done. So now I don't have any goals. So now I have to go in and reconsider what I'm going to do.
Yeah, that sucks, man. I guess it's all over now.
Yeah, time to hang it up.
That's right, man. Well, and not only that, right? 10 is it's a big number. It's pretty significant. But did I hear right, man? You've got over 1 billion streams of your albums to date?
Yeah, one of my albums in 2017 called Footprints on the Moon went to Pandora right when they started to push huge on that. And because of that, I got in their fancy algorithm. And anytime I put an album on there now, it just gets streamed so much because of the past. And I don't know how any of that works. I'm just thankful it does work like that, because it's been so fun having people come out to shows and, you know, they're like, hey, do the IHOP bit. And I'm like, how do you know that bit? And they're like, Pandora, man. It's like, okay, well, I didn't even know that was happening. So this is great.
That's pretty incredible, man. Well, you know, it's interesting too, like you talk about when you started out, you had this goal of releasing 10 hours of comedy. When you started doing this a couple decades ago, like streaming wasn't really a thing or anything like that. Certainly, you know, comedy albums on Pandora or Spotify or podcasts were not a thing. Did you have any idea you'd get to a point where you'd have these kinds of accolades to celebrate? Or like, someone would come up to a show and say, hey, I know this, you know, this deep cut that I heard somewhere.
Right. No, I mean, I really thought it was like, I'm going to have to go tour as much as I can to get people to like me. So when I go back to that city, they bring their friends. I had no idea it was just going to be sharing stuff on social media or, you know, accidentally, you know, typing in Nate Bargatze into Pandora and then my thing comes up next and then people thumbs up that, you know, it's a lot of piggybacking, but it's, whatever works to get people out.
Yeah, for sure, man. Well, and that's how, I mean, that's how people discover, you know, music and bands, right? Like you like this band and then, well, who inspired that band or what do they sound like? And you kind of get further down. For you as a comic, like who were some of those comics that you really looked to or you studied as you were starting out?
Well, I loved Eddie Murphy from the time I was a little kid because Eddie Murphy Delirious was the first special I ever saw. Army crawled out of my bedroom and watched it under my dad's reclined feet because I don't think they would have let me watch it. So that's what I was doing. And then, you know, I loved Jon Stewart when he had his MTV show, the Jon Stewart Show. And then there were some local guys around Minneapolis where I went to my first live comedy show. This guy, John DeBoer, he made comedy look so fun that I thought, man, I don't know if I can do it, but I sure would like to have a job like that. So, local guys and then some of the bigger guys. And then, you know, I didn't even listen to Richard Pryor until I started doing stand-up, and he is my all-time favorite guy. I mean, just the honesty when he lit himself on fire after smoking crack, actually telling people about that. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing.
Yeah, no, and I think that, man, like when I talk about connecting with rock and roll and connecting with comedy, like that's where I find that deep connection is that transparency or that authenticity or whatever that is.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree.
Well, and this new special, Empty Nester, congrats on this, man. It's out on Netflix. It's personal to you, right? It's pretty authentic that you are now officially an empty nester. Is that right?
Yeah, this is as close to my real life as you'll get because it's I just wrote this. I just wrote this hour because it's what I went through. My daughter went to school. My sons got married. My I started dating myself. So it's like there's a lot of stuff going on. And then all of a sudden, I couldn't even put my notebook back in my pocket because it was like, oh, this will be funny. Oh, this would be a good idea. So I wrote it all down, and here we are. It's on Netflix.
That's awesome, man. Was there anything, and not just for Empty Nester, but the 9 previous specials you've done too? Do you ever write something down where you're like, ooh, I don't, that might be too honest, or that might be revealing a little too much? I mean, I've heard a lot, man, from you. So
yeah. There's, I don't mind breaking down the fourth wall for myself. I did ask my kids, before I tell a story about them, I asked them if it's okay to tell it. And so, because listen, I don't, a billion streams, but you don't make any money from it. So I don't know how I'm going to pay for therapy if I have to pay for my kids' therapy after I tell a story about them. They ain't one out there. So
that's good, man. Yeah, you're being proactive on that front.
That's right. Absolutely.
I love that, man. Well, and I mean, just for me, like I've got 3 little kids, and so I mean, I love stand-up comedy anyway, but I also just love kind of seeing this other side of, oh yeah, what life used to be like. And one day I can dream about, life being like that again when the kids are out of the house.
Yeah, Chuck, if I can give you any advice about having young kids, it is stop loving them right now so it doesn't hurt as bad when they leave.
I was going to ask you, now that you're on the other side, what advice do you have for parents who aren't to the empty nest stage yet? And I guess that's about the best advice I've ever gotten.
That's kind of it. Stop loving them now. Because, when everybody was gone, the silence in the house, it's a different kind of silence when they're not coming back. It's deafening. And so I actually called my mom and I was like, so what's the deal? Am I just like done being a parent now? And my mom goes, well, you just called me, idiot. I was like, oh, yeah, that's right. I guess this never ends. That's good to know.
Yeah, it's just different, and you can start calling them idiots too as they get older, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, then it's no longer frowned upon. Everybody just kind of agrees, gives you the old head nod.
That's right, man. Well, how's it feel, man, to have this special out? I mean, by now you're a veteran releasing these, but I got to imagine even special number 10, it's got to feel pretty good.
Yeah, it's always nice to get a project out and. Especially to be able to tell people that it is on Netflix. There's something to it when it comes to comedy that when you say it's on Netflix, people listen a little more, their ears perk up. So this has been nice. Get some new eyeballs on it and enjoy the tour when I start up in September.
Well, and so when you start up, this special will be out for a couple of months. I imagine you're bringing out fresh material on tour, right? Stuff that's not in Empty Nester.
Yeah. It'll be new stuff, and some of the shows I advertise as doing new stuff, so they know. But I have found it's really interesting. Like you talk about rock and stuff like that. If you're in a jam session and you're watching a band create a song, I mean, I'm a huge fan of that because then you go, oh my God, I saw the beginning of this thing.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of comedy fans are the same way, where you go, hey, do you mind if I try some new stuff? And they go, well, we would love it, because then they feel like they have part in the process. If they laugh, you're going to keep it. If they don't, you're not. And so I have found that not too many people care if you're doing new stuff, as long as you're upfront about it.
I love that, man. Do you find it on the other side too? Because bringing back the rock and roll analogy, I've seen Metallica 25 times, and I love hearing deep cuts and whatever. I also love hearing the hits, man. Like I could hear Enter Sandman a million times, and it's all good. Do you find that with audiences too? Like some of the hits, those classic bits from your 20 years of doing this?
Well, I try not to do the old stuff on live shows, even though some people will come in and they'll be like, hey man, I brought everybody from work to hear this one joke. And it's like, well, I'm sorry I didn't tell it, but I'm trying to write a new hour. But I had something really cool happen to me in Philadelphia once. I was at their club there, and this guy goes, hey, do the bit about IHOP. And I go, oh man, I know how the story goes because it happened to me, but I don't really remember all the nuance and where the punchlines go and the rhythm of it. And he goes, well, I know it. And I'm like, all right, you come up here and tell it, and I will go down there and drink your beer. So we switched spots. I went down to his table and sat by his buddies. Yeah. And then he went up on stage and he did the joke. And I would, not to be, whatever, but I was sitting out there and I go, yeah, pretty funny joke watching it from here. I liked it.
Right on. That's a pretty unique way to get to kind of realize like, hey, maybe I'm doing the right thing here.
Yeah, I would love if people at shows just wanted to come up and do my material while I sat at their table. That would be amazing.
There we go.
I would love to do a full show like that, like joke karaoke or something.
I love that, man. You might be onto something there.
I hope I am. That'd be perfect.
Well, it's interesting too, like hearing you say that about someone in the crowd, saying that and you interacting with them like that. That's clearly a big part of comedy these days. I mean, certainly audience work is nothing new, but the way you see it come out on TikTok or Instagram or Facebook, like it almost seems like comedians are seeking that out, right? They're working the crowd for some of those clips. Do you do that? Like, how do you feel about that? You've been doing this for so long, pre-social media, and things change. You have to adapt. Like, how do you feel about all that as a comic?
I mean, I'll put something out if it's natural, right? I mean, I hate to, break down the fourth wall here, but there are some comedians that are famous for doing crowd work, that they do a half hour of material, and then the second half hour, they just go around the room asking people the same question until they get a clip. And I could never do that. That sounds miserable to me.
Yeah.
But if it happens organically and it's recorded and, everybody's okay with it, then I have no problem putting it out. The only thing you want to be careful of is you don't want to become the person that is showing everybody they're willing to deal with hecklers, because then all of a sudden you're going to have a crowd full of hecklers, and that sounds pretty miserable.
Yeah, that's a whole different ball game, man.
Absolutely.
All right, now I got to ask. I know we're running out of time, but I got to ask this. So anyone who Googles you, man, they land on your Wikipedia page. There's a photo of this really nice looking, clean cut gentleman wearing a bright green V-neck sweater, smiling, no facial hair, no tattoos. Today though, you're a man's man. You've got a beard, you got tattoos. You're still a nice looking gentleman for sure. But what happened, man? Is this what kids did to you? Like, is this what happened? Like where'd that transition come from?
This is COVID lockdown, man. I was like, you know what? If we have to stay home, I'm going to be my truest version of myself. So I'm not going to shave, and I'm going to have somebody stick a needle into my arms. But I've always wanted that kind of stuff, and I kind of waited until my kids were a little bit older, and then this way, when I have grandkids, I'll just roll up my sleeves, and they can be scared enough to listen to me. I think that'll be perfect.
That's perfect, man. I love it. Well, listen, Chad Daniels, what's next for you, man? I know you've got a bunch of shows coming up, really kind of taking you pretty much to the end of the year. What else is on the horizon?
Yeah, that's it. Just going to get out there, write this new hour, and then just kind of always what I do is write the new hour, schedule a time to record it, and then figure out where that's going to go, and then start over again. It's almost like Groundhog Day, but it takes me a year instead of a day.
Right on, man. Well, Chad Daniels, thank you so much for hanging tonight. Everyone, check out this new special, Empty Nester, on Netflix now. Follow him on Instagram and Twitter at @ChadDaniels, and make sure to stay caught up with his schedule. Check out all of his tour dates and everything going on at ChadDaniels.com. Chad, it was a blast hanging, brother. Let's do this again soon, man.
Works for me. Thank you, Chuck. I appreciate you having me on.
That wraps up this episode of Loudwire Nights on Demand. Stay caught up with everything happening in the world of rock and metal on the Loudwire app and at loudwire.com.